هذه حتى أتاه اليقين من ربه. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد الرحمة المهداة وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أصحابه وعلى من تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. All praises belonging to Allah Azza wa Jal, and may the peace and blessings be upon His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and upon his family and companions and all those who follow in their guidance until the day of judgment. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla on this blessed day of Friday to bless us with acceptance and guidance, and to make us of those who take advantage of Rajab and Sha'ban and benefit from the blessed month of Ramadan. اللهم بارك لنا في رجب وشعبان وبلغنا رمضان. اللهم بارك لنا في رجب وشعبان وبلغنا رمضان. اللهم ارزقنا صيامه وقيامه على الوجه الذي يرضيك عنا، واكتبنا فيه من عتقائك من النار. آمين آمين. أما بعد, brothers and sisters, last week we spoke about self-discovery. And we said that for the human experience, Allah Azza wa Jal designed us in a way that we grow through the things that we see, the things that we do, the people we interact with. Our life experience shapes our attitude, and it also shapes our behavior. And Allah Azza wa Jal did not create us as human beings to have it right from the first time. And we learned this from the story of Adam alayhi salam. The whole story is centered around human beings growing through experience, and human beings being impacted by their surroundings and their reality. And in that journey of self-discovery, which every single one of us is taking, I should be learning things. Allah has given me, my deen has given me certain parameters, certain guidelines that I need to take heed of. Will I benefit from life's experiences? This is the question that every mu'min should ask himself, herself. I should be benefiting something. If I'm not growing in any way through the things that I go through in life, then this is a very, very negative sign about my Islam and my Iman. Brothers and sisters, we said that this is the human reality, one of self-discovery. And to add to that, it's important to know that the richest aspect of humanity is interaction. Interaction because we weren't meant to live in isolation. Interaction because that's what helps me grow in character and my khuluq. It helps me grow in my understandings. And that's something else we learn from the story of Adam alayhi salam. Allah Azza wa Jal, when He created Adam, He didn't leave him as such, and that was the end of it. No, He created Hawa. And that's not the end of it either. He, Azza wa Jal, decreed that what happened between Adam and Iblis happened. So human beings, the richest aspect of humanity is mukhalata, is mu'ayasha. Is mu'ayashat al-nas, living with people, interacting with others. You know what, in fact, studies show us that mental health issues, addictions, you know what, sinful behavior comes as a result of utter isolation. That's something to keep in mind, you know, because today we have so many ways, not one way, to communicate with most people in the world. Most people in the world, it's very easy to communicate with them. Phones, that's an option. Messages, another option. Email, another option. You know what, it's not just a phone call now, it's FaceTime, or it's virtual, it's video calling, or whatever it might be. We have so many different ways to interact with each other. But one of the central struggles that many people are facing today, you know, especially in the quote-unquote most developed country in the world, America, even especially here, people are so connected, yet they're utterly disconnected. And that's affecting people in so many different ways. Emotionally, in terms of their social skills. People don't like talking with each other anymore. People don't like interacting with each other anymore. Especially for the younger generation. People avoid it. People have this phobia of interacting with others. It's a phobia. It's a fear of interaction. You know what? It's actually, for some, frustration. I don't want to deal with people. People are annoying, quote unquote. People bring problems. I'm going to avoid having relationships with people as best as I can because it only makes life difficult. But whereas the fahm and the understanding of our Salaf al-Salih was centered around this idea of suhbah, having good companionship, having a righteous companion, and what that does to a person, what that does for a person when he has part of his life mujalasat al-salihin. I need to have that element figured out in my life. Because you know what's happening? People, as a result of not interacting with each other, people are losing empathy. People are dehumanizing others. People are treating others like statistics, like numbers. Because I have no idea what this person or this demographic or these people are dealing with. I have no idea. Because they're out of my social circles. The extent of who I deal with are those who I go to work with, those who are with me in my class, or you know what, those who are my family members or neighbors. But it doesn't go beyond that. For many people, that's the case. Whereas our Salaf, they had this understanding. Yeah, there's a bittersweet reality of interaction with people. No doubt. No doubt that when you're dealing with nufus bashariyah, when you're dealing with a human being, there is a lot of complexity there. There might be some ta'qeed, or you know what, not might be. There usually is some ta'qeed and complexity to the reality when you're dealing with human beings. And this is especially important to keep in mind when we're talking about dealing with the difficult aspects of people, dealing with their emotions, dealing with their shahawat, their lusts and their desires, dealing with their shubuhat, their misconceptions. And it's something that many parents have to deal with. Mothers, fathers, or you know what, friends, or teachers, advisors. You know what, when you're in a position of nasiha, when you have to deal with someone's struggles in life, it's not easy. It's not a desirable position to be in, that position of nasiha. Because it's often not dealt with easily. I ask anyone who has kids, please keep them silent so that everyone can follow along with the khutbah. Jazakumullah khair. But brothers and sisters, when it comes to interaction, it's so much more than it's actually relating to how you say what you say. People might say, well, I give people advice all the time, but no one wants to listen. I'm constantly telling my son, my daughter, don't do this, don't say that. And I just given up on them. Or you know what, sometimes it's the reverse. Sometimes the son or daughter want to help their mother or father deal with certain realities, and they reach a point of despair, giving up on them. It's a lost cause, quote unquote, like many people end up saying about those close relationships. Take a look at this verse that describes the wazifa and the role of the prophets and messengers. Look at this verse. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, وَلَوْ شِئْنَا لَبَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ قَرْيَةٍ نَذِيرًا فَلَا تُطِعِ الْكَافِرِينَ وَجَاهِدْهُمْ بِهِ جِهَادًا كَبِيرًا. The Prophet ﷺ was told in this verse, had we decreed, every town would have been given a warner. Every people would have been given someone to advise them. And then Allah Azza wa Jal tells His Prophet, so don't listen, don't be swayed by what they're saying. Don't be swayed by what they're saying. فَلَا تُطِعِ الْكَافِرِينَ وَجَاهِدْهُمْ بِهِ جِهَادًا كَبِيرًا. It's a great struggle to be in a position where you have to deal with people's challenges, their growth challenges, their shahawat, their lust, their desire, their shubuhat, their misconceptions. You know what? Problems and difficulties relating to relationships. But our deen says that this is part of the process. If you really want to grow through your self-discovery, don't run away from relationships. Al-hurub min al-waqi'. This is part of al-hurub min al-waqi'. Running away from your reality. Allah Azza wa Jal did not decree for me a reality where I'm completely closed off from those around me. And I should never aspire for that. You know what? Headache from here, from family, extended relatives, I'm going to cut it off. Headache from my direct family, you know what? I'm going to cut it off. Headache from friends, I don't want any friends. Headache from that's it. I'm just going to focus on me, myself, and my career. That nafsani approach to life. To what extent do the opinions of others matter? To what extent? You know what society will tell you? Don't care about what anyone thinks. You do you. اهتم بنفسك. لا تهتم إلى الآخرين. لا تهتم بالآخرين. Don't care about anyone else. Let them say whatever they'll say. خليهم يقولوا اللي عايزينه. You don't care. But this is not an Islamic understanding. هذا ليس مفهوما إسلاميا إطلاقا. Not at all. Our deen teaches us that the perceptions of others about me, who I am, the perceptions of others about me speaks volumes to my status in the eyes of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Take a look at this hadith. It's an authentic hadith. This hadith says, يوشك أن تعرفوا أهل الجنة من أهل النار. The Prophet ﷺ is saying, it is as though you can know the people of Jannah from the people of hellfire. How are we going to know the people of Jannah from the people of hellfire? The Prophet ﷺ explains. They asked him, بما يا رسول الله? How? This is من علم الغيب. لا نعرف أهل الجنة ولا نعرف أهل النار. But the Prophet ﷺ said there's certain signs. And among those signs, and in fact at the forefront of those signs, is the athar of mukhalata. The athar and the nata'ij, the results of interaction. He said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, بِالثَّنَاءِ الْحَسَنِ وَالثَّنَاءِ السَّيِّئِ أَنْتُمْ شُهَدَاء بَعْضُكُمْ عَلَى بَعْض. And another narration of the hadith, أَنْتُمْ شُهَدَاءُ اللَّهِ فِي الْأَرْضِ. This hadith, it tells us that when you see all of the people in a person's inner circle of interactions speaking very highly of a person, that's a high indicator of character. When you see a reality where the people furthest away from the person are speaking high of him, but those closest to him tell you a completely different story, no, this is a very dangerous sign. If everyone outside sees me as a great person, but my spouse, my son, my daughter, my parents, my relatives cannot really say the same. In fact, they say the direct opposite. Then this is a scary sign for me. That means I need to work on my relationships. That means I need to أعيد النظر في الأولويات وأعيد الحسابات في وجهتي في الحياة. I need to re-examine my approach to life. Because Allah Azza wa Jal teaches us, the Prophet ﷺ teaches us, that a lot of my deen is relating to interaction with those around me. And that's not a cliche. That's not something that's lightly said. Because Iman is supposed to come out in that mukhalata. Iman, true faith. That's not how good you raise your head or bow your head in sujood or in ruku'. That's not what true Iman manifests in. No, it manifests in mu'amala. And this is something that our Prophet ﷺ, he tells us in the hadith. The hadith, it's a well-known hadith. But it's so important that we think of it today. Because again, we're in a time where we're connected in every single way. If you look at your friends' lists on social media, you'll probably know what your friends ate for lunch and dinner today and the day before, and you'll know where they're going and their trips and who they're interacting. That's the reality of today. People are utterly connected, but are completely disconnected. And you know what? If I really want to feel the most beautiful aspects of life, let me taste the bitterness of interaction and seek something better through it. Because that bitterness will lead to sweetness. It will lead to sweetness. For a abd who is mukhlis lillahi azza wa, that's the path of the prophets and messengers. That's what made their life meaningful. This is what their message was centered around. Dealing with the complexities of their people. Ya qawmi inni lakum nasihun ameen. I am a sincere advisor. Or another one saying, وَنَصَحْتُ لَكُمْ وَلَكِنْ لَا تُحِبُّونَ النَّاصِحِينَ. I exerted my effort. And you know what? I dedicated my life to this undespairingly. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep trying. Because that's what makes me better as a person. And that's what changes the reality of people. I'm going to embrace interaction because our Prophet ﷺ, he says, and this is a hadith I was going to say earlier, tells me, الْمُؤْمِنْ الَّذِي يُخَالِطُ النَّاسِ وَيَصْبِرُ عَلَى أَذَاهُمْ خَيْرٌ مِّنَ الْمُؤْمِنِ الَّذِي لَا يُخَالِطُ النَّاسَ وَلَا يَصْبِرُ عَلَى أَذَاهُمْ. Or in another narration it says, أَعْظَمُ أَجْرًا. That person who embraces that reality, that prophetic mission of dealing with the circles, the social circles that Allah Azza wa Jalla has put in his life, her life, that person is going to come out with sincerity, come out far greater on the other end. Come out far greater on the other end. Yeah. Life's not going to be convenient, but it's going to be so much more valuable, so much more precious. If the Prophet ﷺ wanted convenience, then his legacy would not have endured for 1400 years. What made the Prophet ﷺ's life meaningful? It was going through those bitter realities of trying to change people. So when you think about giving up on your son or daughter, your mother, father, your family, your friends, when you think about giving up on society, because people, they're at that point. And we need to talk ourselves back from that point, because people are so frustrated with society, so frustrated with community, with people, with human beings. They're so frustrated, they've despaired, they've given up. I don't want this, I'm just going to do whatever I can for me, myself, and I'm going to cut out a nice, happy, convenient life for myself. And yes, sure, I'll do some salawat and I'll fast Ramadan, but that's the end of it. That's wholly unprophetic. That's not what Islam's about. Yeah, if you choose convenience for yourself, then when you go to your grave, your life will hardly mean anything after that. But when the person endeavors interaction, then I need to deal with the challenges of nasiha. There's a lot of challenges when you're talking about giving advice and receiving advice. Al-nasih wal-mansuh, the giver and the recipient. Because today, people, they have certain perspectives about what should be done, what's right. And the perception is, as long as I'm saying what's right, I have a free pass to say it whichever way I like. Take it or leave it, I don't care. I'm going to go to social media and put people on blast for doing what's wrong. And that's going to make me feel good about myself. That's not what our deen is all about. Abadan. No, my deen teaches me to care about actually winning people over. About really caring, about changing my dynamic. So many people do that. They see it as a form of bravery. Yeah, I'm going to go put people on blast, and I'm going to put a hashtag, and I'm going to name certain individuals or certain organizations or certain communities, and it's going to make me feel a whole lot better about myself. Great. I've hardly done anything to really change the reality of people by doing that. Brothers and sisters, our deen teaches us to consider the haqq and to consider the best way in delivering it. And that's what the message of Rasulullah sallallahu, that's how he penetrated hearts. And that's what we should really care about when we're dealing with those around us. كيف أكسب هذا القلب هذا الإنسان? How can I really win over this person? If I make that my pursuit, then perhaps I'll be a whole lot more successful. When I look at my son or daughter and I say, well, I've told this person what's right 1,000 times over, and it's like they're deaf and blind, I give up. Perhaps I need to focus a lot less about what's right and focus a lot more about who I'm talking to. What's their reality? How can I win this person? How can I get this person on my side? How can I build a bond Because ultimately that's what it's about. Brothers and sisters, the giver of a nasiha and advice has a responsibility. The recipient of the nasiha has a responsibility. And if I'm really going to grow through life, I need to consider my responsibilities and implement them to the fullest in my life. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us a people of understanding and wisdom and sincerity and ikhlas. And ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us of those who embrace the true message of our deen, the true message of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in their dealings. Allahumma ameen, Allahumma ameen. Ud'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijabah. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف الخلق وسيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. أما بعد, brothers and sisters, the responsibility of the giver of advice is multifold. There's a lot of things that could be said about that. And the first thing on the top of the list that needs to be considered is our Prophet ﷺ himself was told, when you're dealing with others, know something that'll help you manage, that'll help you deal with the complexities that'll come your way, right? Because as you know, the ayah, it says, يَا بُنَيَّ أَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَانْهَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ. Deal with what will come your way, because it's complex. What was our Prophet ﷺ told? Our Prophet ﷺ was told, لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُصَيْطِرٍ. As an advisor, the only way I can manage to continue to deal with what will come my way is if I realize I have a certain role. إِنْ عَلَيْكَ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغِ. Your job is to convey in the most beautiful way the truth. And the reception of the truth is the responsibility of the mansuh. لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُصَيْطِرٍ. You have no power and authority. And when you deal with nasiha as someone who has power and authority to control others, then you'll get very frustrated. Then you'll give up very easily. Another responsibility, and this was said to the prophets in many ways, in many different verses of the Quran, when they were conveying the message, realize that your role stops at giving the message. Their role begins at their reaction to it. Another advice that was given to givers of nasiha was, remember that protecting the interests of others sometimes means not doing what they want. And that's where true love comes. Because nasiha is about true love. If you give in to the desires and temptations of those around, you don't really love them. You don't really care about them. And that's why Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, had Allah given everything to His servants, given all the rizq, وَلَوْ بَسَطَ اللَّهُ الرِّزْقَ لِعِبَادِهِ لَبَغَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَكِنْ يُنَزِّلُ بِقَدَرٍ مَا يَشَاءُ. Had Allah given everything to everyone all at once, it would have led to corruption. لَبَغَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَكِنْ يُنَزِّلُ بِقَدَرٍ مَا يَشَاءُ. Nasiha is also centered around uplifting people, not bringing them down. Because whenever advice is given with the spirit of bringing others down, that's when it's stemming from nifaq, not iman. Nifaq and hypocrisy leads to putting others down. And that's what Allah Azza wa Jal tells us in His book. He says, لَوْ خَرَجُوا فِيكُمْ مَا زَادُوكُمْ إِلَّا خَبَالًا. If they went out with you, they would have weakened you. That's what hypocrisy does. It depresses people. It pushes people away. It deters them from goodness. No way can giving advice ever be done properly with the spirit of izdira' and ihtiqar. It can be ever done with the spirit of undermining others, of disregarding their emotions. That's not true nasiha. That's not true advice. That's not true love. That's not the spirit of prophetic interaction with others. And in addition to this, brothers and sisters, as we said, nasiha involves with speaking to people's emotions. And this is something our Prophet did so excellently. It's about speaking to people's sensibilities, giving them the message in a way they could comprehend. And our Prophet ﷺ, he taught the companions in this regard. حدثوا الناس بما يعرفون أتريدون أن يكذب الله ورسوله. Speak to people in a way they can comprehend and understand. Do you want them to reject the truth? Do you want them to reject Allah and His Prophet? Those are the responsibilities of the giver. When it comes to the responsibilities of the recipient, on the top of this list is recognition that if you have someone who gives you advice in your life, bring them close to you, because they're a blessing from Allah. Even though you might not like it, because it goes against what you want for yourself. Love those who give you advice, because they're a blessing from Allah Azza wa Jal. And that's something our Prophet ﷺ teaches us. When he says, إِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِالْأَمِيرِ خَيْرًا جعل له وزير صدق إذا نسي ذكره وإذا ذكر أعانه وإذا أراد الله بالأمير وإذا أراد به غير ذلك جعل له وزير سوء إذا نسي لم يذكره وإن ذكر لم يعنه. The Prophet ﷺ tells us, if you have someone who's that, if you want yes people around you, then you're a person who really doesn't want to grow. Some people, anyone who goes against them and their will is someone that they antagonize. That's it. I'm going to put an X on this person. He's against me. But what the believer really wants is advisors. Because it's a sign of Allah Azza wa Jal decreeing goodness for the person. Blessing him with someone in his inner circle who will speak to him seriously. Speak to him. Give him real talk. Pay attention to this. This is going to ruin you. Pay attention to this. This is bad. This is toxic. Grow out of this, because if you don't, it's going to lead to this and that. We need those types of voices in our lives. That's the top of the list. If I really want to grow through life, I need to be willing to have that in my life. And much more can be said, brothers and sisters. But I don't want the khutbah to exceed more time than this. And I pray Allah Azza wa Jal makes us of those who reconsider our approach towards our interactions with those around us. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to help us frame our relationships in a way that is becoming of the Prophet ﷺ's message, in a way that's becoming of His pleasure, to make us of those who bring closer to their inner circles, those who will help us grow in our journey to Allah Azza wa Jal. اللهم آمين اللهم آمين وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا وعافنا واعف عنا وتجاوز عن سيئاتنا. اللهم اغفر لصغيرنا وكبيرنا وحينا وميتنا وذكرنا وأنثانا وشاهدنا وغائبنا. اللهم من أحييته منا فأحيه على الإيمان ومن أمته منا فأمته على الإسلام. اللهم اجعل خير عمرنا آخرة وخير عملنا خواتمة واجعل خير أيامنا يوم نلقاك فيه وأنت راض عنا. آمين آمين. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وأقم الصلاة.